Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So I just want to quickly weigh in on the California PG&E power outage, planned power outage situation. I'm always getting emails from you guys, which is great because sometimes it pushes me over the edge into doing a video on a topic and providing my 2 cents. The whole algorithmic recipe right now is to talk about current events. That's why you see a lot of people, anytime something new comes out in the news, they're going to talk about it, and that's how you trigger the algorithm for your favor. Now, that's not really why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because this is a preparedness topic, of course. You know, the power outage. I got to take this sweater off, man. This is freaking hot. Turn that damn heat off. Burning up in here, by God. So, there's a few ways to look at this. A subscriber sent me an email providing me the backstory as to what's going on. So apparently last year, PG&E Electric was held responsible for some wildfires, which cost them billions and billions of dollars, which potentially, put them into bankruptcy because they're liable for all the damages. And this year, in an attempt to minimize the risk of triggering another wildfire, which could cost them a lot of money, they're shutting off the power. Now, apparently the governor of California is upset that the company is doing this, and so you have that divide between private and public right there brewing. Perhaps they're going to try to nationalize the power grid after this or something like that. But there's a few ways to look at this. Now, the first theory that you're going to hear, especially in our circles, is that this is an SHTF test scenario. This is an experiment to see how people will react. It's basically a planned power outage. They're telling people what they need to do. It's going to be 5 to 7 days, apparently. And the media is really hyping it up and playing on it because it sells ads, right? I watch a 12-minute segment of a news broadcast which has their survival handbook and, how to survive the 5 to 7 day power outage. But let's get real here. 5 to 7 days without power, especially in California, is not a death sentence. It may, for some people who are in critical care or require electricity for medical devices, then definitely it's going to be a problem for them. But for the average person, it's not going to be a big deal. But they're making it out to be a big deal. Yes, there's going to be water shutoffs because the pumps aren't going to work to pump the water and a few things like that, but they're really maximizing it. And I don't mean to minimize it, but the media is really maximizing the significance of this. Again, if we put our tinfoil hat on, there's a few ways to look at that. The first way is that they're trying to condition people to be totally grid dependent and train people into thinking that, living off grid is impossible. And it's all part and parcel of the thing to get everybody onto the grid who isn't on there already, and to get people who are on the grid to appreciate it more and never stray off into the wasteland, or which is basically the rural environment where everything is clean and the water runs freely. But don't go over there and drink that water because it's bad for you and all this stuff, right? And you can't drink the water even if it's a fast flowing glacier spring or something like that. You can't drink that water just because a beaver might have crapped in it or some nonsense like that, which is, total garbage. I'll drink out of the Canadian glaciers any day. It's perfectly fine to drink. People have drank from that water for thousands of years. So there's that component of it. The demonization of off-grid life is one, overarching theme that whether intentional or not, this has the effect of reinforcing. Then you have the theory, and these are all just theories. I'm not saying I believe any of this or it's true, but when I'm analyzing a situation like this, these are all the angles I explored from. So there's the other angle of, okay, this is some sort of government exercise. And whether it's an intentional government exercise or not, there's most certainly going to be some retroactive review of how things played out. Even if it wasn't intentionally planned for the purpose of seeing how people would react and seeing how fast the shelves would be emptied and seeing what sort of altercations and weaknesses in the system would present themselves, it's going to be more data for the government regardless of whether it's planned or not. And the last tinfoil hat theory that I can think of is that this is a way to condition people to get ready for a big event like this. That's probably the prevailing conspiratorial view right now, is that they're getting people mentally prepared to accept, these sort of long-term power outages for the future. So this has the effect not only in California, but in the nation abroad, who's now being bombarded with media about this event. It's going to have the effect of getting the population more conditioned to the idea of long-term power outages and that they need to prepare more. So it's going to make it even more mainstream. Prepping gets more mainstream every year. And this isn't a surprise to me, because in Western civilization, it's only in Western civilization that prepping is a thing. I mean, if you're in a nation which is impoverished, it's already shit hits the fan. So, the idea of prepping is kind of a luxury that we enjoy here in the West. And the more industrialized we become and more modern we become, the more prepping becomes a thing, because the further we are removed from the land and yada, 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 things I've talked about 1,000 times before on this channel. The elephant in the room here, which we got to discuss, is why this is all happening in the first place. And it's happening because of these wildfires, unless you believe the conspiratorial stuff, which, it may be true, it may not be true. Anyways, but let's just take this at face value for a second. So if it is the case that these forest fires, which have been at record levels in recent years, are causing these sort of disruptions of services, planned or unplanned or whatever, as a result of, all the financial implications and the potential bankruptcies and all that. This would be, by some accounts, the reality of global warming becoming a tangible, consequential thing in our society. So if the incidence of wildfires is increasing and they're becoming more intense, and it's having this effect where it trickles into the economy, so they got to shut off the power to prevent, any future, liabilities and insurance or whatever, responsibility for causing the wildfires, then that's having a tangible effect on people. That's the impact of it. That's the first economic impact of it, because this will definitely have an economic impact in those regions. Output is going to be produced if there is any industry there, and productivity in general is going to go down. So that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, if you're somebody who thinks that, it's just the government who, is planning all this to see how we're going to react, well, they have countless case studies already. I think they know generally, how people are going to react. They're going to go try to rush the gas stations and the grocery stores to get stuff, and then when stuff starts to dwindle, there may be the odd fight breakout here and there. And if anything, this is training the public to understand how far-reaching the power grid actually is, and just how much of the critical infrastructure is impacted by the power grid. Because, I was watching that news broadcast, and there's people, who weren't even aware that, the water system relied on the power grid. And, just getting the public used to, well, how is radio going to be affected? How is television? How are cell networks going to be affected by this power outage? So it's training people to understand the full extent of what a full power outage actually means. I mean, there's a woman who didn't even know that she couldn't use a generator in her house. So it's training people in the basics of emergency preparedness. So whether or not it's good or bad, it's having that positive effect. Whether it's planned because they think something is coming down the road, who knows? We can all just, speculate about that till we're blue in the face. But one thing's for sure, and probably to be expected and shouldn't be surprising, is that the media is, in my opinion, overblowing it. Now, that may be my prepper bias, because to me, flashlights, bottled water, and gasoline, that's all day one prepping stuff. That's like the least of my concerns when it comes to prepping. My preparedness challenges are in the 6-month plus grid down range at this point. So anything before 6 months to me just looks like whatever. But it's just a reminder too that the majority of the population has no idea and is increasingly more dumbed down when it comes to off-grid survival. Like, to me, when I hear 5 to 7 day power outage, I don't think survival at all. Like, that's not even, you could survive that by just hanging out in the house and eating potato chips for 5 to 7 days. I mean, that's not a huge deal. Yes, your standard of living is going to be reduced, but I don't even know if the term survival needs to come into play unless you're really talking about some special needs parts of the population, like people who have medical problems and stuff like that. But the average person, 5 to 7 days without power, that could possibly be one of the best things that could ever happen to some people. So to call it a survival situation seems quite silly, and I think it makes us look soft. I mean, it must really make us look soft to the rest of the world, who, for them, that's just, that's just a thing that happens. I don't even think the term survival would be associated with an event like this in a lot of other countries. And I'm talking about Canada and the United States too, because, Canada, California, same thing, man. Slight minor cultural differences. Yeah, we got 6 political parties, but really we only have 2 political parties, maybe 3 sometimes. So we're not that different, So anytime I speak about the United States, I'm really speaking about Canada also, just for people who are easily triggered when I talk about the US. And I talk about the US because it's just more interesting to me. There's so much more going on there. But yeah, we do have an election coming up, so make sure you go out and vote. So what do you guys think about this? Is it a government exercise? Is it just media overhyping it? Is it the result of increased temperatures, which are causing more wildfires? And this is just one of the first of many consequences that we're going to have on our power grid. Do you feel that this has any significance to the big picture whatsoever? What are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Canadian Prepper out. The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com. We've totally revised our website. We only deal with quality products at the best prices, and all of my subscribers get a VIP discount of 10% off the entire store. Use discount code SURVIVALPREPPER for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive and the prepared thrive. See you next time.